Hello and welcome to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley. Today I'm excited to welcome back Tom Calderone, President and CEO of Buffalo Toronto Public Media.
Good afternoon.
Josh Mullin, drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy and co-owner of Jackrabbit on Elmwood Ave.
Nice to be here.
And Daniela Kayser, owner of Daniela, and she is also the department head of craft service for the Buffalo Niagara Film Commission.
Hello.
So today we're talking about streaming trends, comfort foods, and iconic Buffalo bars. But first, so that explains all of your roles here already, right? But first, what's your role in your own group chats? So when you're having conversations, whether it be texting or messaging on social media, what role do you play? Josh, I'm going to start with you.
My work chat, I'm the annoying guy. I'm the first one sending a message in the morning. The restaurant world runs at later hours than the father world does. So by the time all of my managers and partners are awake, I've been at it for 4 hours and I've got basically a list for each of them. So I'm usually the first one checking up on everything. I'm the annoying group chat guy. And my band one, I'm one of the least communicative ones because I just don't handle as much of the business side stuff in that operation. And then with my friends, I'm usually like the check in on it once a week and scroll up to see if I'm mentioned in maybe an LOL, but that's pretty much it. Yeah.
None of that surprises me.
You would be the person that I probably don't like in the group chat.
Yeah, no, that's me. Yep.
Because I'm not a fan of group chats, probably because I don't have enough time, so I may be jealous of you that you could like play on your phone. So I'm the one who usually is just like giving you like a you hate me, but like a thumbs up, or just acknowledging and maybe never responding. And I have one with that's like my work one too, because I just it's more of a fun work one. And then the other one is a family one that, of course, I respond to my husband and, my son. But, I don't really have too many group chats. Not really my thing.
I'm envious of you.
Tom, how about you?
For my friends and family, I'm just the king of non sequiturs because they'll just talk about sports or a concert they went to, and then I'm like, just adding something that has nothing to do with the conversation. So just to kind of show them that I'm interested in just entertaining myself. It's more like jokes for one. Yeah. So I kind of go down that path. And then for work, try and keep it brief.
Yeah.
And I rarely will text any work people unless it's really, really urgent.
Yeah. So we know if we get a text from you, we better respond.
Yeah, you better. You better. That's all I can tell you.
So we've talked about this quite a bit on group chat because it's such a part of our lives, but with awards season, including the Oscar nominations coming up, streaming services, it's just an ever-changing thing. And even now with sports, and football and being in sports season, what streaming services do you use and why? Josh's eyes just got huge.
All right, I'll kick this one off again, I suppose. So, too many is the short answer. So I have to have Disney Plus for the kiddo because all of her favorite shows. Hulu Live because that's how I watch sports for the most part because I don't pay Spectrum for personal reasons. Netflix because everybody has Netflix and now you have to if you want to watch sports too. Apple TV because there's a few shows that I just think they do a really good job with. And then Prime, kind of same thing. You just it feels like you have to have it to catch up on sports and stuff. And then occasionally HBO, I think I got it to catch up to do a Sopranos marathon when I had a cold last time. And I forgot to cancel it. So
I actually feel very heard right now because I feel like there are a couple series that I got into, like being homesick, and then
and then it costs you $100.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than medicine.
Yeah, I know.
Tom, coming from the world that you come from and your background in TV and major networks, does this surprise you at all that one person in the room, how many streaming services did you just mention?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6? I mean, that's just TV. Mm-hmm. The audio ones, I mean, Apple Music and Spotify. So.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
No, it doesn't because sports has become now that equalizer that you do have to have Peacock, you do have to have Netflix, you do have to have Amazon Prime. Because it's going that way. I think because the windowing of many of the series, like The Office was on Netflix, now it's on Peacock. Trying to follow that is really kind of annoying. But I will tell you, So 2 family members. Now this is legal because you can buy it on Amazon. Have bought this thing called the Super Box. Have you heard about this?
I've heard of
Okay.
the name.
So let me explain to you what this is. And by the way, this is not an ad. I don't have it. But my brother and a few others just bought it. It's $300. And it, with the exception of like a Netflix subscription or Amazon Prime, it literally is everything. So in Connecticut, he can watch channels 2, 4, and 7 from Buffalo. He can watch Bally Sports, Ohio. He can watch the West Coast feed of Bravo. Like, it is amazing, this Super Box. And people are buying it now. See how long it lasts. I'm not sure how the clearances happen or the programming rights or whatever. But
is it like a real time? Is it almost like a cable box? And those
it's a cable
are
box,
streamed?
but it's all streamed.
Yeah.
And there's 6,000 free movies on there. It's
too.
Yeah. The only issue is, here's the only issue with it. The only issue is that it can only connect to one TV. So if you're like YouTube TV, you could put on several TVs. You have to kind of pick that one. But if you think about it, if you're a Sabres fan right now, and I'm with you, I don't have Spectrum, there's no other way to watch the Sabres other than Fubo, which is $89 a month to really just watch the Sabres.
That's my Hulu Live.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. So, but the Super Box is allegedly, from many friends that have it, a unbelievable service.
Is the sports streaming now, do you think, the nail in the coffin for cable? Because I feel like that might have been the reason that a lot of people had actual cable was for sports, but now that there's the streaming option.
Yes.
The issue is going to be around depending who your team is. So obviously, not everybody that lives in many cities are fans of that local thing because they're transplants, right? There's so many people moving to Buffalo that are Steeler fans or Cowboy fans. That's where the streaming will be helpful. But as long as the FCC continues with its legal regulation to the NFL, which is every home game has to be on a broadcast service. So even if it's on Netflix, exception, well, actually Netflix would be on if the Bills were on Christmas Day. That's the only thing I think could save it, the local part of it. But if you're an MLB fan right now, where would you go other than a streaming service at this point?
Yeah.
It gets real complicated in the restaurant world.
Right.
For example, like the Paul Logan fight.
Yep.
So everybody wants to watch that. My bar was open that night. Why wouldn't we have that on the TV screens?
Right.
The licensing was obscene. It just wasn't possible. So then you got to do this, and they're estimating, your occupancy, like in our spot, is 400 people.
Right.
They assume you're going to be completely full, and every single one of those people is going to watch. So you have to pay per person, the same way that you used to have to do the pay-per-view stuff.
So it's like $20 a person almost,
Yeah,
something like that.
So it's just
that's
not
ridiculous.
even. It's not even reasonable. Even though
Right.
you could very easily just pull up an account, send it through
Right.
your Roku to your system, and call it a day.
Right.
That's where I think things get a little complicated.
I agree, because there's many bars and restaurants that don't have Amazon Prime on Thursday to watch football and whatever. But you're absolutely right. You have to kind of go to the places that, like you have, where you can kind of pick the different games and stuff. Yeah.
So for those people that don't know, that aren't in the business, there's actually a separate, you can't just stream something in your bar. There's a separate license.
Commercial
bar,
is different than
restaurant.
residential.
Yeah. Daniela, what role does streaming play in your life and in your world?
Well, I might be the only one maybe left in, I don't know, Buffalo that still has cable. So I know, and I pay a lot of money for that. And I have basically 2 streaming options, Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So what role? But I'll tell you, I'm not a big, I love television, but I work a lot, so I don't get to always watch television. But my husband, he loves sports, so he hates it that he has to go between cable and the streaming, and it's something that he doesn't enjoy. I'm watching sports all the time, but not really paying attention. So for me, I don't know. I don't really care. You know, I know that's terrible, but I like Netflix, movies, but sometimes you watch it for like 8 hours. You're like, oh my God, why did I just do that? I just wasted my day. But yeah, so streaming for me is, I'm just, I don't know, old school, I guess. I just put the TV on and it's right there.
There's like a show right now that I'm obsessed with. It's called High Potential. That's on ABC. I couldn't tell you when it's on, but I watch it on Hulu. And by the way, it's also a great music show because they do have some really great music cues in there. But yeah, usually it's Hulu or Peacock for the next day run of something if you're not home at that particular time. Yeah.
And there's a lot of great shows on there too.
Yeah. Law
By
and
the
Order
way,
every episode.
disclaimer, we do not have any affiliation with
No,
any of
no.
these.
No.
I mean, what is Dateline on now that I'm obsessed with? Dateline is on, I think I watched it on
It's
Hulu, but I think it's on multiple platforms.
Yeah, it's on
now.
multiple. It's also has its own fast channel now, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. And even our own talk about our own business. Even Passport now through PBS is all binging at this point. So if
Oh,
you
yeah.
love All Creatures, boom, you got it right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Passport's become the Netflix for PBS fans. For
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, including the musical performances. And, I always felt like PBS was that station you just put on.
Yeah.
And now you have all that stuff on demand.
I do miss the days of one button and something instantly happens.
Yeah.
Again, I have a 2-year-old, so sometimes it's like you just need to put on Sesame Street,
Yeah.
and she's losing her mind. And it's like, okay, sweetie, I need to put this on. Now I need to go pick the app. Let's hope it loads. Let's hope it saved my sign-in data. If not, we got to play that whole game. And it's like, this just takes forever. And then you finally get to it. It loads again. You got to pick the episode. It's like the usability side of it is so poor.
Oh, yeah.
It used to just, you think about modern usability, it's the fewest clicks to get to your destination.
Right.
And you talk about television usability, it's just gone so far backwards.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more friction than what you're used to, like
yeah.
you do, where
Yeah.
you just put it on and boom, and there
Yep.
it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, easy gratification.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the 2-year-old element, because you want to talk about like different generation and everything on demand for them.
Yeah.
And them getting everything quickly. Like, we used to have to wait to watch our favorite show. Now it's, I want to watch Sesame Street right now. And then you put the PBS Kids app in, and then there's only certain episodes on there, and then there's episodes on Max. So it's like, you want to watch Elmo's Nutcracker, you better find that app right away. They're not used to waiting.
Yeah.
There's actually an app called Reel Screen,
Yeah.
REEL, and it is, you put in a show and it'll tell you what streaming service is on and for how long it'll be on. It'll also give you notifications to, hey, The Office is moving from here to Hulu or whatever on this date, so you at least can track it that way. That's the only app that I know of that's a third-party app that can tell you where to find things.
Yeah.
But it's annoying. It really is.
Do you think that will generationally affect us? Like, there's this whole generation that just knows at any given time, if I yell at my dad, I can get this exact episode of Sesame Street that I'm obsessed with. Whereas when I was a kid, like, I understood this ends at 10 a.m. There's no more Sesame Street after this.
Yep.
There's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and that was way too boring for me. So it's like, you got to get there and
Yeah.
know it. And it's, okay, this is what I'm being fed. This is what I'm going to enjoy. And then I'm moving on, versus now it's like, I have to have this. I know I can have this.
I am worried about that, because it is, you talk about instant gratification when your 2-year-old is trying to tell Alexa to play a song, or tells me, I am not kidding, Mama, PBS Kids, now she says WNED, or now he says WPBS Kids, and then he goes, no, Mama, WNED PBS. I'm like, I am trying. I am trying. You're 2. Like,
But you know what I think it is, though, to that question? I think it's going to be about a service. There's the general entertainment part of it. There's also the specialized thing. And I think platforms like Passport or Acorn or BBC Select are going to become actually rise higher to the thing, because then you're getting something special that you can't get everywhere else. Because I think the repetition part is the problem, and that is, okay, well, again, I'm sorry to keep picking on The Office, but or Parks and Rec, it's on Peacock, it's on Hulu, it's also on, Comedy Central 24/7. Like,
Yeah.
what are those other streaming services of things I can't get or I want to discover?
Yeah.
And these kind of, I would say, boutique streaming services, I think, are going to have a good run the next couple of years. And they're also affordable. They're like $2.99 a month, $4.99 a month.
yeah. In case you're just joining us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Tom Calderone, Josh Mullin, and Daniela Kayser. We've been talking about streaming services that are all, whether we like it or not, are part of our daily lives. And we are in award season. Now, the Oscar nominations obviously got pushed back because of the LA fires. And, that's something that we... definitely we pour out our hearts to those victims. None of this stuff that we're talking about is really that important, and in the entertainment world compared to what is happening there. But there is a period that's been extended, and obviously we had the Golden Globes, so sometimes there is a little bit of an intersection there. So, you have movies, there's movies that are expected to be Oscar nominated. And if you look at some of the, Golden Globe stuff that kind of overlaps, all of these movies that are nominated, you can go to a website and you have to see each of them you can watch in different ways.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm thinking that a lot of these weren't even, people didn't see them in theaters.
Well, and that was the weird thing because back in the day, and back in the day is only like 3 years ago, I think,
Yeah.
to be nominated for an Oscar, it had to at least run in a movie theater for at least a day.
Yeah.
It could have been an art house thing in New York or Los Angeles or whatever. It had to at least be in the theater for at least a 48-hour window before it could be nominated. I think that went out the window at this point.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's even harder now to find some of these movies that people are talking about.
Yeah. And even, Wicked was a big one, and that was a big one where people were doing like previews before it came out in the theater and people went in the theater, but it's like there's really no time lapse in between theater and streaming now. Were there movies that you intended on going to the theater to see? Did anybody go to the theater?
Moana 2.
You did see Moana 2 in the I was gonna try that. It's already out on Disney Plus.
We should have gone together. It was wonderful.
Really?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Enough commercials for it, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoy those movies. The
Yeah.
music's great. That one in particular is great. I think Disney's been doing a pretty good job lately.
Yeah.
Especially on the music side, that's always where my heart is. So
Yeah.
if I'm watching a movie with my kiddos, and it's like I can pay attention to this. These are
Yeah.
great songs,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, that was the only time I was in a theater this entire year. Was
Yeah.
for that, and we streamed Wicked basically as soon as we could. Paid
Yeah.
the $20 to Amazon or whatever it was,
Yeah.
but totally worth it.
Yeah. Daniela, I know you're very
I know.
busy.
Yes, I know. I think the last movie I saw was the Bob Marley movie.
Oh.
And
Oh yeah.
I can't even remember the name of the movie, but that was the last
Yeah.
movie I saw at the theater.
Yeah. Well, have you streamed? Are you a movie watcher? Have you streamed any of the Oscar nominees or potential Oscar nominees or
No.
any of the big movies?
I do love movies.
Yeah.
Maybe older movies, but I do love movies, but I haven't really been paying attention to the Oscars
Yeah.
and to what's happening. No, I have not.
Yeah. Award season, though, there has been a lot of talk about what do award shows really mean anymore,
Right.
tuu.
I think they've seen their time, and
Yeah.
I think because they still make money, they'll still continue to be produced. But I'm not sure if it has the same gravitas as it once did. you know.
Yeah.
Maybe the Oscars are the only ones left at this point because it is global
Yeah.
and people slap people on stage, so that does happen. But
Legendary.
I mean, to watch that in real time, still to this day, you're like, is this really happening as I'm watching this?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just was. I mean, yeah.
That was actually one of the times I was watching in real time,
Yeah.
too, and I
Me
didn't
too, yeah,
really realize that is this happening? Like, it wasn't I saw it the next day. It was I
Oh,
didn't know what to
yeah.
think.
Hocus rock.
But I mean, I think the hosts, that's a big thing. Obviously, Nikki Glaser.
Yeah.
And I think the day after, people are still consuming those shows and watching the reels. I mean, like I said, it does narrow down choices for me because just being busy and I get overwhelmed with a lot of choices. I do like somebody saying, okay, maybe you should check these movies out. So I mean, basically that's what I use it for now. How do you think decisions are made, Tom, from your experience? How are these decisions made on what platforms to go to, how long to keep in a theater?
Yeah, I think now what I think producers are looking for now is less because the platform reach is hard to quantify because people do cancel after watching The Sopranos, or maybe there's a movie and then you're like, okay, I'll get out of this one. I think it's really now about the marketing part of it. What are you, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, Peacock? What is your marketing plan for this piece of content? And whoever has the best plan will get those rights.
Yeah.
I think it's more about that, less about reach at this point because a reach is reach. But if you want to be on that first carousel or that first shelf, or or in the case of Peacock, if you have the leverage of NBC and their cable channels and their news channels to promote your film on the platform, that's the one's going to win. Netflix doesn't have that, afford that, where Peacock, Paramount Plus, and Hulu do, because Hulu's ABC and Fox. So you do have the bigness of those huge whistles that can say, hey, this is where this thing is.
Yeah.
So I think it's more about the marketing plan than anything else.
Oh, interesting.
And the other thing too is that as Netflix has become like the creative haven for people, I also think a lot of audiences are getting a little fatigued because Netflix doesn't really give you notes, which for creators is an amazing thing. But that's why you have The Irishman coming in almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
No other network would go for that. They say
Yeah.
that for the Laserdisc, for the
Yeah,
director's
yeah.
cut. We need this in a tight 90. And so I think, or every Adam Sandler movie
Yeah.
just gets greenlit because it's Adam Sandler. And if you really saw those numbers, trust me, you don't want to see those numbers. They're not good.
Yeah.
So I think that they're also looking for some guidance as far as the creative goes with some of these streaming platforms too.
Yeah. Well, we talked about movies and we dabbled a little bit in sports, and sports watching definitely is a ritual. So whether you're watching at home and you're watching games at home or you're tailgating, food's always involved, right? If you're watching a sporting event,
Of course, it's the best part.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to talk about comfort food coming up and maybe some of your habits around, watching sporting events, whether it's live or in person. And I can't wait for Daniela. I'm going to try to pick her brain about some of her soups because I'm obsessed. So when we come back from the break, we're talking about comfort food, the perfect dishes for a cold winter, and local food-related events. So don't go away.
Support for Group Chat is provided by our members and by the National Comedy Center.
Thanks for joining us again on Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm joined by Tom Calderone, President and CEO of Buffalo Toronto Public Media, Josh Mullin, drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy and co-owner of Jackrabbit on Elmwood Ave, and Daniela Kayser, Chef Daniela Kayser, owner of Daniela, and who is also the department head for craft services for the Buffalo Niagara Film Commission. So I just can't wait to talk to you about this next segment. I think was created for you. We're talking about comfort food, and I always think of the soup at your restaurant. Is it stracciatella? Am I saying that? I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And we will be talking more about this, about people going to restaurants and restaurant habits changing, but I just feel like I will never be able to make that at home. I need it in your restaurant when I
It's so easy. It's very quick. But yes, I love soups. Soups are my thing, actually. I call them garbage soups. They're not garbage. It's just I take whatever is there and then I create something. And there's like a portobello soup that I make, and I make it out of like the stems and other parts too, and it then becomes something delicious.
So did soups arise in restaurants out of a way to limit food waste?
Well, maybe, yes. I mean, for me it does. I do that with another, like a French onion that I do. I take we make a special pizza. It's called pizza, and I take all that bread that was not good, and then I use that as my toast. And then I also add some tenderloin that is part of the chain that we don't use, and I cook that down and render it. So those are things that I make out of a lot of soups.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. This is the part of the episode where I get very hungry. So do you Josh is like, same. Josh, I know just in our personal conversations when you were opening Jackrabbit and creating the menu, I felt like comfort foods kind of always came up for you.
Yeah, that's definitely what we wanted to do. We wanted to do comfort food, Buffalo-centric food in our way, which we would do by sourcing in a better way than most people would, by using better ingredients and cooking it in kind of our own unique spin.
Yeah.
So like one thing, Buffalo loves chicken fingers, right? Our chicken finger subs. It's one of our best-selling items. So our chicken comes in on a bird. That's how every bit of chicken comes into our restaurant. So slice it off the bird, and then we, pound it down, we bread it, we freeze it. We've got a whole process, then it comes out, and then we cook it. So like our chicken fingers are not just rip open a bag from U.S. Foods and dump them in the fryers. This is like a 3-day process that gets that chicken finger to your plate, and it's special because of it. So we do that with everything else. So like our soup, our chicken noodle soup is one of our staples. It's kind of a thing. Everybody calls it the best hangover cure. It's just this thing. And, it's because we have a rotisserie oven. So the birds come in, we send them through the rotisserie. We pull them, we take the remaining carcass, and then we make our stock, and then we make our soup out of our stock. So nothing goes to waste. I mean, our onion peels go in it, so we use everything. And whatever else doesn't go to waste, you'll see on a specials menu.
Wow. I'm not a plant, but I will tell you that comfort food at your place is a go-to for me. The meatballs, the roasted beets, Yes,
Yep.
that is the and you have a great staff behind the bar. And the soup, I will tell you, I hearing now how you make it, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, because when you're tasting your soups, you can definitely taste, I should say, the different elements that are in there that you normally wouldn't taste in a soup, which is so this is not a plant. I truly do go to both places, and
Well, thank you.
please, thank you, and thanks my belly for that. But no, the comfort food thing too. Even when you're watching, I think it's different when you're watching a movie versus a sporting event or what have you. If you have people over, whatever. But I always feel like during the winter, it's comfort food time. It just seems like that's the time.
Yeah.
For that chicken noodle soup or whatever.
Yeah. And I think anything with cheese too, like, I mean, like French
lot of
onion
cheese.
soup. I want to do a French onion soup bar crawl. Like, I want to go to all the places
Yep.
that have
There's a
French.
lot of good French onion in Buffalo.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a pub thing, but
Yeah, I would say it's kind of centralized.
Yeah.
Not to put too much focus on the part of town where our restaurants are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're kind of North Buffalo, not North Buffalo, Elmwood area, because
Yeah.
the place,
Yeah,
Coles,
yeah,
you
yeah.
guys, like
Yep.
they're all in the discussion. I'm sure there's great other ones, but when you ask pretty much anybody,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm going to the place or I'm going to Coles.
I will go
Right.
somewhere
Yeah.
just for their French onion soup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, comfort food is, I think, with cold weather as well. And obviously you said, Daniela, soups are a very important part of your restaurant. Soups have become a tailgate thing, I feel like, too.
Yeah.
Josh, you're a
Crock-pots.
tailgater.
Oh yeah, crockpot. That's why. I mean,
Yeah.
anything that you can keep warm long enough to be out there where you might have power or not have power or limited power, soups can keep some heat. You make a pot of chili, you keep it in your crock, you take it out there, it's still going to be warm 2 hours later in
Yep.
10-degree weather.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of food that will remain intact like that.
Yeah. Daniela, when you were planning your restaurant and soups became a part of that conversation, how did you decide to have these soups on your menu, and what is the background?
So let's see. When I was planning my restaurant, I thought about the menu and I wanted to keep it kind of simple, and I chose things because originally I started out as a caterer, and I chose some items on my menu that were like not necessarily Italian, like we do an ahi, and that was because I did it on my catering menu, and I chose all these specific things. I wanted to take a little bit of Italian things, right? In Italy, you go to Italy and you'll eat at a gelateria, which is like just for gelato. You'll have a cafe, it's just coffee and pastries. And then you'll have like a trattoria and all these different things, right? A pizzeria. So I took all those little elements and I made it into like one spot. And so when it comes to like choosing soups, well, stracciatella is an Italian soup. It's a word. It's not actually what it means. It means to make little rags or to rip apart. And so I wanted to have some of those, Italian type of things. The other soups were just like the one soup, the portobello soup, I made at my sister's restaurant because my sister had a restaurant, and restaurants are not easy, and she would stress all the time because you're worried about money. And so that's how I did it out of the necessity of like, oh, we're going to throw these portobello stems out. No, we're not going to throw them out. We're going to use them. And then I created something out of that. And there's another one I do too, like rapini or broccoli rabe. I take that and I turn it. I'm like, oh, this is almost going to go. Let me turn it into a soup. And so that's how soups come about. And I also love soup. So,
Yeah.
that's something that I guess if I like to eat it, I think I do a pretty good job on that. But that's where they come from. And then just like growing up, my parents are from Italy. And so we would have a garden. So you would just make something and then put it there. Or there's no waste.
Yeah.
Because you don't waste food. Here, we're very wasteful. They're like, oh, here's this, remnant of a half tomato.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take that tomato and I'm going to make something out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how they come about.
Well, and it, as business owners, both of you too, it sounds like that's a pretty crucial, food cost is a crucial part of your business. So that's a very great skill to have.
And getting harder every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for the lay person who might want to have a soup at a tailgate or make a soup at home, what are some of the go-tos? What are you think are some of the easiest things for somebody like me that doesn't cook, or Tom that goes to your restaurants and lets you cook for them?
Yeah.
I mean,
Make reservations.
Yeah.
personal experience, I like to cook. I don't like to bake for the same exact reason. You can adjust it constantly. So a soup, you've got the time. So you get everything in there, everything that you're trying to use. You get your base, and then you take a spoonful of it, and what does it need? And you can really kind of steer it. That's why I like soups. And if so, for somebody that's not the greatest chef in the world but knows how to use spices, a little salt and pepper goes a long way in a soup. And you'd be surprised. It's dull. Salt and pepper suddenly wakes up the entire thing. How many times you've been in a restaurant and you get a crappy cup of chicken noodle soup? It's like just load it up. And you're fine.
And then you're fine.
It's simple.
Yeah. So simple. Some of the best soups have 3 ingredients. The small amounts of ingredients, and some of them, like my chili recipe, I mean, it's like a mile long at this point. Everything goes in it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fun too. And what you were saying, like the garbage soup, day after grocery shopping, I get home, unload the groceries into the fridge. Everything that is about to die comes out of the fridge, and that goes into a soup that day.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to waste it. And
and then that's why the crock pot works so well too.
Crock
right?
pot's great. And then once you get the soup, you can have that left over in your fridge for 2 or 3 days and pull out anytime you want.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you think foods like this and comfort foods help to bring people together? Obviously, there's a heritage component, Daniela.
I mean, yes. I don't know. We live in Buffalo. It's cold. And what do we know what to do is go out and, you're playing in the snow and you come back with your kids and the kids want to drink hot chocolate. Say you're in Atlanta where it doesn't snow all the time and they don't have that experience. So that's like, the comfort foods are kind of bringing your family together. And for me, I mean, all I think about is food. It's kind of gross. The minute I wake up, till I go to bed, it's a lot. And so, I want to make sure when my son comes home from school, he has food and everything is food. Italians, you want to take care of people. It's like that term, you're breaking bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about the smell element? Like when you walk in the house, I try to, if I know my wife's out and when she gets home, I want to have the onions and the garlic on the stove.
Yeah.
Right? So when you walk in, it's like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about like a soup day or sauce day or chili day.
Yeah.
All day your house just is reeking of this
Yeah, it
beautiful
smells so
smell.
good. I know. I wish my husband would cook because I want to know what that smell is because I think I just smell my body.
Just numb.
I smell like an onion. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you go back to the senses though, and it's a real thing because like that time, like in August, September, when it again at a certain age you start to go, oh my God, it smells like back to school again.
Yeah.
Like I think that's part of the comfort thing too, is that certain seasons bring out certain sort of like when you smell a barbecue during the summer, you're like, oh, that feels very summer like.
And we were talking about viewing habits, and we've talked about this before on the show, but like horror movies, there is an urge to snack because of the connection
Stress.
of like stress and salivating and and you're eating chips. I mean, maybe that's why sporting events people are eating chicken wing dip and tortilla chips because it's a stressful situation. I don't know. I do know with the playoff game coming up and saying that you have to get at the stadium at like 8 a.m. for the 6 o'clock game, you've got to plan like 3 meals.
Yeah.
That is going to be a lot of people. Yeah.
I'll be there. We'll
Yes.
figure it out.
In case you're just joining us, you're listening to Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, here with Tom Calderone, Josh Mullin, and Daniela Kayser. We're talking comfort food, viewing habits. They all go hand in hand. What do you think are the Buffalo local staples that should be on a menu, or that you want when people come to Buffalo, you think that they should have? I know this is different. There's always controversy. There's always controversy around wing places.
Yeah.
When we launched Hit Jackrabbit, we did not want to be a wing place intentionally. It's written right in our initial business plan. We weren't going to do it. We figured, okay, where we are, if you want wings, you're going to go to Good Bar, you're going to go to Kohl's, you go to 40 Thieves. There's enough wings in Northern Elmwood. And we weren't running them. So we did our fingers, we did rotisseries, and that was our thing. And then sure enough, bill season comes around. So we ran them for a special the first week. We sold like 40 orders of them. So it was like, okay, maybe we should sell wings because after all, we still are in the business of making sure that payroll clears each week. So then we started doing wings. We sell a ton of them. And as it turns out, people just want wings.
Yeah.
Kind of same thing with the burger. Like we are absolutely not a burger place, but the burger is the number one seller on pretty much every restaurant that has a burger, whether you're a burger place or not. Right. People just like certain things, and some people go out. I mean, my dad's going to go out. He's going to get his burger mid-well, with ketchup only. It's the most boring, obnoxious thing in the world, but that's what he wants. It's like, okay, I'm going to get the special every time, you know?
Is that everybody says that runs restaurants is always pick the special because that's the one that has the most care for that particular day. Is that pretty much the way it works?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
the chef cares more about it. It
Yeah.
usually has a unique seasonal ingredient, something that you're not going to get at the place next door.
Right.
Yeah.
Daniela, how about, incorporating your heritage and being in Buffalo and making that connection?
Well, I know I am American. I mean, I'm born in America, but my family is Italian. So growing up, I wanted to be very American. I can remember going to school and my mother giving me this greasy bag of like a paper bag, not even like, the lunch boxes that you have, of like a potato egg frittata. And I was like, oh my God, please don't do this to me. Give me peanut butter and jelly. And, that was like it's my culture. I don't think I know anything else. And so I just wanted to be American. And then as I started to cook, I realized, okay, I'm Italian. I kind of know this. And I think this would be nice to show other people what we do. And I try to keep the restaurant, Italian, but with my spin on it, because we are in Buffalo and, people like things a certain way. Like we make a pizza called pizza, and in the beginning everybody's like, you got pepperoni and mushrooms, and I'm like, nope, we don't. And then I end up buying pepperoni because just like your chicken wings, you have to make people happy.
We could probably do a whole segment on school lunches and horror stories behind what your parents would send.
Oh,
Josh's face just went.
I go to a dark place with that. My first couple of years of school, I lived with my mom, and my mom is completely Italian, cooks everything, scratch everything. And so I went with a turkey sandwich that, again, I was embarrassed of. I wanted to trade for the kid that got the crappy pizza or the peanut butter, and fluff or whatever. But I had my turkey sandwich that my mom made with love and had no idea I was trading away. And then, I changed schools and changed homes, and then it was, $1.05 on the table on the way out to go get your school lunch each day, which when I was 7, thought that was great. But then looking back, it's like, man, that food was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, just completely unacceptable, And in a lot of kids, there was a pop machine in our cafeteria and a chip machine, and so it was 60 cents for the pop and 45 cents for the chips or whatever, or 70 cents and 35. And so I figured out that your lunch money could get you a can of soda and a bag of chips, and everybody else figured that out. And so like my entire class was just eating a tiny bag of chips and a can of soda for lunch. You say, no wonder we couldn't pay attention in this period. Like that's insane. Yeah, it's a horrible state of affairs.
It's funny that you remember $1.05 because that's how much I remember that.
$1.05.
That specific.
Not anymore.
No. Do you make your son's lunch?
No, but I used to. When I had more time, I would be like making all these things, and now I'm a terrible mother now. And he buys lunch, and sometimes he'll make his own lunch too, because he's 14, so he's been learning how to make his own lunch. He washes his own clothes. He's very independent, and then he does buy a lot of lunch too. So
I always think of I watch The Bear because it's a great show, but also no, it gave me anxiety at first.
I only watched one episode.
It's way too triggering.
It's
yeah. I can see that.
And I mean, there is an episode where he goes home and he's shoving like tortilla chips and drinking Coca-Cola. Like that's his dinner. Yeah. Because like restaurant people, they don't cook for themselves.
No. Oh yeah. You don't realize you're hungry when you're at work. Yeah. And then, so I mean, I will be surrounded by any food that I could eat and a team of chefs that will make me anything that I want. And I'll work all day and I'll get in my car to go home, and I'm a quarter mile up the road. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I have in the fridge at home?
Yeah.
And I get home and same thing. It's like, I'm just eating this. Like, why?
Like a piece of bread.
Yeah. Like, why did I just not do this?
So neither of you can watch The Bear?
It's tough.
Yeah. Some of it's not realistic and some of it's realistic, but I only watched like one episode. Yeah. And, my employees are always like, there's one girl, she's like, C-folds. And I'm like, what's that from? Because it's like the paper towels. Yeah. And that's what they're talking about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just can't watch this show.
I can't watch award shows. Doing years of the VMAs and the movie awards and all those award shows. Like I can't watch any award show because I get that anxiety of like, oh, I know what these people are going through,
Yeah.
and you know,
The pace of it.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure you've got some award show horror stories that you
there'll be another
can't talk
episode.
about.
There'll be another episode.
It's kind of one of those, once you see how the machine works, you don't want the product.
It's
of it.
also, you just know what the folks are going through.
Yeah.
And, you know, did so-and-so show up on time too? Is the audio right? And yeah, it was always live for us, at least. Though the movie awards we taped, that was taped, but VMA's TRL was live. Yeah.
I always wonder how they get everybody in their seats on time.
They don't.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's all seat fillers in the beginning. And then if you notice, there's always like that, you know, when they do that crane shot, there's always that's where the PTSD hits in. It's like, oh my God, there's not enough seat fillers for that particular show. I feel so bad for them. And then, you know,
Yeah.
or miscues or not looking at the right camera. Yeah.
Are people getting out there to give the awards, right? Make the announcements?
Yeah, they 2 minutes, you know, and it doesn't matter. They're celebs, so they will sit down when they're ready. you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, the seat fillers, they have a great life. They get to
Yeah.
make a lot of money just to sit there and look nice and then get kicked out.
What about presenters? Do you ever did you ever have to switch anybody out, or maybe somebody
Oh, yeah,
did,
all the time.
All the time,
Like
is
if
that a
someone
thing?
didn't show up, or
Yeah.
let's just say maybe they had a liquid dinner that we had to be careful about.
Yeah.
We had one. Well, there was one with sadly a great R&B star who she passed away a while ago. Actually, at the night of one of the Grammy nights, and her and her boyfriend at the time, Bobby Brown, so you can figure out who it was,
Yeah.
came out, and they were supposed to do video of the year, and they decided that they didn't want to do that. They wanted to make up their own award as they were walking out.
Oh my. How?
It's like, no, you can't do that. And you could not reason with the two of them because
Yeah.
they weren't. So we had to bring someone else out. I think it was Jimmy Fallon was hosting. So we said, Jimmy, can you just come out and just kind of control this moment? But yeah, we want to do best hip hop R&B songs. Like, well, we did that an hour ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
So
presenters
every
thing's tough.
element, you're probably you can't even. Do you watch them? Do you just wait to watch the clips the next day? You don't even watch.
No, unless it's a highlight, like the monologue, like Ricky Gervais or Chris Rock or Nikki.
Yeah.
I'll always watch the monologue for sure, and then that's about it.
Yeah. So all of the things that go into the shows as we are in award season and all of the headaches, and do you think they're going to stick around? I know you.
It's going to come down to who's going to pay for them.
Yeah.
And the allure of a network having the star power of those red carpets, it's not special anymore because, again, you can see it on Instagram, don't necessarily have to consume the show.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be about who still wants to sponsor these and are they getting their bang for the buck at this point. And even though award shows are DVR proof in the sense that you have to watch it while it's live, most people are okay learning about it on Twitter and then eventually on Instagram or something like that.
To find out who won and
Yeah.
to see what people were
so the
wearing.
highlight, the highlight part. So the pre-show red carpet shows that E does, mostly E, and now ABC's doing them now too because it's cheap. Rate extremely well.
Yeah.
They actually sometimes do better than the other shoulder programming. But it's the again, you don't think about these things. It's hotel rooms, it's car services, it's feeding.
Yeah.
It's a lot of budget that you don't see on camera.
Yeah.
That costs a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, Daniela, your work with the Niagara Film Commission with feeding people, there's a whole element to
Yes, I
that.
do.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
Very needy people. Most
Yeah.
of the time, it's the crew,
Yeah.
not necessarily the cast. I have a lot of casts that, no, they're needy too, but the crew is very needy.
Yeah.
And we got to feed them because they're like my family, and I want to make them happy.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes
Yes.
with, crews and.
Oh my God, the craft services table would always be the most judgmental part of any
Yeah.
production. It's like, well, this cheese wasn't as good as the gaming award show or whatever.
They're comparing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I was at
The VMA cheese table
Yeah, it
is
was
not
horrible,
as good as it
yeah,
was last
horrible.
year. I'm just saying.
horrible.
Well, we are going to get into a little bit of the changing restaurant and bar scene in Buffalo, maybe some of the things that you have to deal with
Talk about
as
triggering.
business owners. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about the scene, also iconic bars that make the city unique. So that's coming up on Group Chat on WBFO. We'll be right back.
Support for Group Chat is provided by our members and by the National Comedy Center.
Every time that we breathe in now, there's is a new beginning. We're soaring away. We're starting today. So dive with me. We're alive. 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 We're
Thanks for joining us again on Group Chat. I'm your host, Bentley, and I'm joined by Tom Calderone, President and CEO of Buffalo Toronto Public Media, Josh Mullin, co-owner of Jack Rabbit, and also the drummer for Uncle Ben's Remedy, and Chef Daniela Kayser, owner of Daniela and the department head for craft services for the Buffalo Niagara Film Commission. So obviously the bar and restaurant scene is always changing, and you came off of COVID and adjustments for that, and now there's other challenges, and also there's a changing landscape. Josh, should I just start by reading your social media
by all
post?
means. Let it rip.
This is one of the reasons Josh is on today. After the bad news about Brick Bar after the fire, Josh had a post that a lot of people were talking about, including one of our producers. It's hard not to think that there's been an outright attack on the underbelly of this city. When I moved here 20 years ago, Buffalo was a place for the rockers, the artists, and the partiers. It seemed a mecca for those that prefer a leather jacket and a PBR. We had Merlin's, Mohawk, the Continental, Nietzsche's, Broadway Joe's, Showplace, The Pink, and countless corner dives. You could go any night of the week, see and hear music, talk about cool albums, and just be yourself without judgment. You could eat and drink until 4 a.m. at a variety of places. Anyone remember having lots of food options late? I've never been the biggest Brick Bar guy, but it's certainly relevant to this. What's happening to my city? And it goes on a little bit and then ends up, if you need me, I'll be mourning yet another piece of this beautiful culture gone up in flames. So there's a lot to that post, but a lot of things that people are feeling.
Yep.
And I mean, obviously the loss of Brick Bar, just another a physical loss.
Yeah.
But what were you thinking?
I mean, that's 1,000% true. I moved here because of those elements, and a lot of people in power, and as people age out of going out age, lose the perspective of the importance of those places. I think everybody wants everything to be clean. Not everybody wants everything to be clean. When I was 21, I didn't. I wanted to go to grungy bars. Yeah. And that's why I moved here. That's why I made a career here. That's why I made a family here. That's why I made a business here. So there are people that don't necessarily want to go to the places that the general decision makers want in their cities. So something might not be shiny and new, but there's a population that wants that. And Buffalo, I thought, had that kind of on lock. It's like the New York versus LA thing. Everybody always talks about, you go to LA, it's sunshiny and it's nice, but people live in New York because it's not nice, right. And especially if you look at 90s New York, it was awesome. And now it kind of isn't that awesome, So it's like, and I look at Buffalo like that. Like Buffalo used to be really great. Yeah, you might be, there's going to be a fight in the bar that you're in. There's a guy selling blow 2 bar stools down from you. I don't care. I'm not fighting. I'm not doing blow. Right. I'm comfortable in this place because there's other people around doing different things. And I just think that that's dying at such a rapid rate. And we're losing what made this town special, at least to me, to go for just looking and sounding like every other city out there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. But
no, I echo that because, going to college here and, it's not even waxing poetic about the Continental and the Old Pink. It's the fact that they were limited already. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't like, okay, well, if that went away, there's 7 other choices. It's just not the case anymore. And, again, I have no skin in the game on this sort of topic, but, I went to the Tudor Lounge one night because somebody happened to be playing 80s goth whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a cool place. And I hadn't been in there in such a long time, and I'm like, there's not many places like this, with the Christmas lights and the Philly cheesesteaks or whatever. And I do believe whether or not you go to those or frequent those, it is part of the culture of any city, no different than the AKG or anything else. It's just, and look, it was only a couple of years ago where people are posting their favorite dive bars from different cities and selling those T-shirts and things like that. And I agree with you. I think it is missing that element at this point.
Well, and obviously we're living this in Buffalo, but I was recently, I think a month ago, I was in New York and we were staying on the Lower East Side, and you just hear about people saying the neighborhoods that are shrinking because of the shiny new places, Little Italy's shrinking, Chinatown's shrinking, all of these ethnic areas, and then, the dirty rock clubs and those type of places, there's new, shiny cocktail bars going in, so I think it's happening in a lot of places. But, how do you keep these places going? What is the key to that? I mean,
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Right. But don't you think too, this is the filter I go to, is that usually it's like, okay, beer all tastes the same, right? Any drink. Who's got at least the best music? That's kind of where you start. Like, who's got the best, even if it's touch tunes, like who's got the best of, right? So I always think that, and that culture's kind of left as well, that not that you would follow DJs as much to say like, well, this place plays this.
Yeah.
And that's why I go there. I don't have to be seen or whatever, but yeah, the Pink when Eric was spinning there, it was like, okay, you can hear everything from the Replaced Mr. Frank Sinatra. That's what made that place great. And I think that magnet outside of the drinks and food is what's also missing too. Like, name a bar that, like Jackrabbit, I know, boom, live music pretty much every night, right? And then, when your situation's a little different, but when you look at like where the culture's going as far as lifestyle's concerned, it is missing about, because music is usually the background now in a lot of these places, not what you're leaning into. So
it's tough. You in order to have music's polarizing in a restaurant, in a bar. People will come in. If they like it, they'll stay for 4 hours and they'll spend $100.
Right.
If they don't like it, they'll leave and go to the bar next door. So for us, we have to program very intentionally with what we want. Also, now, like, I've had to stop doing bands and I have to book more DJs. I say have to, and I'm not pulling back on that. Like, I have to. That's not where my heart is, but in order to keep making payroll, we have to do this because that's what, the kids are listening to and want to experience. So it's evolving. It's that the music has a ton to do with it always. And it's just the age of, I don't know how to properly put this. Like, everybody makes these places designed for this certain demographic that has money, and not everybody wants to hang out with those people. Maybe you want to hang out with the underbelly people, and that's why you have that.
Now, in the restaurant business too, I know The Atlantic just did an article about people just not being in social spaces anymore. People are just staying at home more, or there has to be some sort of draw for them. It's harder to get people out.
Right.
Are you feeling that in the restaurant business? What are some of the ways that you can fight against this, especially having like such a great soup that nobody can make at home,
They can make it at home. I mean,
that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, maybe not as good.
Yes,
they
not
can
as
still
they can make
at
it at home, but not the way you make it.
I mean, COVID, changed everything and ruined everything, and but I think we get a lot of people in, and I think it has to, you have to feel like my space. I want them to feel comfortable, like they are at home, and I don't want them to feel too pretentious. I want them to just enjoy food in a cozy, somewhat space.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what they're doing, but it's hard. I mean, that's like a really hard question to answer
because social spaces are just changing in general,
Right.
and that includes all the places we're talking about.
But here's what I'm going to say. I'll get on my high horse for a second about this. When you live in a city, you make a social contract to support the businesses, whether it's clothing stores or restaurants or barber shops or whatever. That's part of the social contract.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
So-
like that term.
That's
No,
I
but
love
it is, right? So in other words,
Social.
when you move into a city, it's like, oh, there's fire trucks. That's part of that life, right? There's a band playing. It's part of them living in a city. This is all part of that noise, right? But it's the same thing goes with restaurants and these other things, that you need to support those ones because you'll be the first one bitching when one of them close or whatever. So I really firmly believe that whatever your budget can handle, take a sense of adventure. And usually, depending where you live in the city proper, there's probably something in walking distance that you could support. So I always believe that by living in a city, or by the way, it doesn't have to be necessarily a metropolitan thing like a Buffalo thing, but even if you live in Williamsville or Amherst, you should be supporting those restaurants and these other businesses, because instead of going to the larger malls or whatever, because that's part of your social contract when you move to a place. I do believe that.
Will you come with me to my trial with the State Liquor Authority to
Absolutely.
convince them that music needs to remain on Elmwood? Because I'm currently fighting with the actual state over this exact thing.
It is, there's a quality of life thing, but I would make the argument until the police department starts monitoring automobiles with loud music that are also just as disruptive, make it equitable. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have the motorcycles going down Elmwood Avenue. Sorry to be so provisional about that local, but going down Elmwood Avenue making a lot of noise when you're trying to sit on your your thing during the summer. Like, it's got to be both ways. If you can have a noise ordinance, it's got to be for everyone, not a particular business.
There's responsibility on both sides of that, too. Like, I feel a responsibility. If we're going to be, air quotes, obnoxious on a Friday or Saturday night to the neighborhood, I feel a responsibility to be open on a Tuesday afternoon for lunch.
Right.
Because even though we don't make money during that time, because we're a second space for the neighborhood. And when it's a snowstorm, I make sure somebody gets there to open the doors.
Right.
Because somebody might not have power. So there's responsibility on both sides.
Yeah.
Well, and, if you think of property values, you have a nice restaurant like Daniela in that neighborhood. Obviously, the 14222 is a very sought after zip code. And there's people that own beautiful houses in that area. But the draw to live in a city are places like a nice restaurant that you can go to, a welcoming restaurant, a business that you can go and have a drink on a patio. So I think fighting this stuff is going to affect those things as well. I don't think people think about that.
Yeah, neighborhoods have ebbs and flows, and they have peaks, and they age differently. You look at the Elmwood Village, it's so easy for us to talk to because we all know it well. There's a certain population that moved there because they wanted a certain thing, and then they age 20 years, and their prerogative is completely different. It's not, they don't care that they live across the street from a cool bar anymore. They care about their backyard having a fence in it for their kids and their dog. And that goes to extremes as well. Talk about the village. You look at what happened since, the 90s till now. It's unrecognizable.
Right.
So
no, it's part of living, then live somewhere else and, gated community and enjoy.
Yeah. I have 2 children now.
Yep.
I am in the process of moving to the suburbs. And I'm going to live there for a couple of years. Because that's where I want to be for the children. Yep. And then when that's not what fits my family best, I'm going to move back to the city.
Right.
Well, and I even think, even if for reasons, obviously we're in this age of the school situation of the competition, even in public schools, and not being guaranteed a spot. Sometimes people do have to move to the suburbs, but I feel like you'll still go into the city and I think it's kind of in your blood that you'll still patronize the spots.
I own 3 businesses in the city. I'm in town.
Yeah.
Plus, Uber's made it a lot easier, too.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Daniela, what is your history in Buffalo, and how long have you lived here? And what were there spots that you can remember being like, that's my spot, or this is a Buffalo spot?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the suburbs, and now, like you, I moved to the city, and that was early 2000s. And and so I'm not going back I grew up in Clarence when it was like farmlands, and there's no way I'm going back to Clarence. I love the city, and I'm, going to stay here. But spots, growing up, I mean, like bars, I was always hanging out at like the Third Room and House of Quinn. These are places that don't exist.
House of Quinn, sure.
Bradford. I mean, you probably don't know because.
So where was House of Quinn?
House of Quinn is what is that now? Primo's, Frankie
Primo's. Frankie Primo's, yeah.
So it was like that area, and so that was like my little area to go to all the time. I did Nietzsche's too, and so those were my spots. And actually, I met my husband at a bar, which was the Third Room. I actually met him in high school, but then we reconnected at the bar. But those are places that I love to go out every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now I'm not doing that
because you're making happiness for other people too.
Yeah, I won't recover from that. It takes me like a week to recover.
Well, and we've had this conversation before. There is a trend of people maybe drinking less than maybe our generation.
Yeah.
Right now,
Sad.
this year,
Yeah.
in particular, drinking trends are way down.
Yeah.
Numbers are way, way, way down. 20% last year by the last articles that I was reading.
Mhm.
They're expecting that to happen again this year. People are drinking NA. The fastest growing brewery in the United States is Athletic, which makes non-alcoholic beer.
Right.
Super wild fact. Drinking trends are way down and going further down.
And then to accommodate for that, though, now there's a rise in like the CBD seltzers and
Yeah.
Yeah.
other seltzers.
Weed is on a rise for sure.
Yeah. But in talking to business owners, you'll hear that, especially downtown, like you don't have like people doing the bottle service anymore. You don't have necessarily the rounds of shots.
We serve plenty of shots.
We still do shots.
Okay, that's still a thing. Okay, all right.
a
I don't.
Buffalo
Yeah,
thing.
I like to make.
nobody's ever going to get rid of shots.
Yeah.
in Buffalo, yeah.
I used to work at a place called Gables on Hurdle Avenue in
I know
college.
Gables.
I was the DJ there, and they used to do nickel shots at midnight.
Well, here's the thing.
So wrong.
It's so wrong.
So
but
wrong.
how many conversations have we had saying we need to bring back some of that stuff, but legally you can't now because of
Yeah, you can't do free shots for a Bills touchdown anymore. I was just informed not
You
too
can't
long
do
ago
that?
about that. No, I mean everybody does.
Yeah.
And a lot of the state liquor laws are arbitrary unless they choose to enforce them. That being
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
Bottomless mimosas are technically not legal. Open
Right.
bar is technically not
Restrictions.
legal. Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah. A lot of these things that a lot of places do aren't really okay by New York State Liquor
Yeah.
Authority. But unless anybody complains about it, they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So it's just you kind of pick your battles.
Yeah, like the 10-cent giraffes and the.
I mean, as long as you're charging, I guess it doesn't really.
I think it has to be
technically
at least 50% of what you
the
pay for
cost.
it.
Yeah,
What the cost is, or
probably.
I can't remember what the margin is.
I've never dove too far into that. I'm usually
I feel like
looking
10
more
cents.
on the marketing angle. Like, okay, I can't say bottomless mimosa. What can I say? Okay, we'll do a carafe for $10. Fine, it's
Oh.
basically free. You know,
Free,
Is
right.
that how the Thin Man carafes were born?
that's
The
how you
Mickey
and
Boodles?
I became such friends. Yeah, that's exactly how
Listen.
those came around.
I am an advocate for
Yeah.
mimosa crafts.
Can't do
You won't
bottomless
miss the
mimosa?
you won't miss the bottomless mimosas. It's all about
I
the
can't put
crafts.
the bottle on the table. Okay, I'll pour it into a carafe and hand it to you. You know.
That's crazy.
Oh my god. Yeah, the story the Atlantic did, it was more about all these types of spaces, but I think the first headline on that was the bar is closed. So it was bars, restaurants, social spaces, but as we know, everything is kind of cyclical, so maybe that'll come back around.
At the end of the day, any small business owner is going to do what they have to do to remain in business.
Yeah.
And a lot of that goes to the restaurant. Like your off-air question about the patio.
Yeah.
I'll answer that on air.
Yeah.
There's not enough people going to a restaurant to justify the additional 30% of seating in the
Gotcha.
winter. That's it. People
Yeah.
just don't go out as much.
Yeah.
Right.
If they did, if I was reserved out every single night, I would figure out a way to open that
Get
patio.
over the panic. Yeah.
Other
got it.
cities have that problem. We currently, or at least I currently, do not have that problem.
Right. Got it.
So, obviously we lost the Pink, we lost Brick Bar, but and
Mohawk.
everybody's got memories. Mohawk's closing now. Everybody has memories from these places. The one thing I do want to mention is there is a benefit this weekend at Nietzsche's for the employees of Brick Bar.
Yeah.
So, you don't think about those things because people in the bar and restaurant business, they don't necessarily, have insurance or they don't have PTO. So, they're used to making $300 a night and then the next night their job isn't there. So, they're doing Friday and Saturday, they're doing benefit for the employees with bands and all the proceeds go to that.
Cool.
So,
Yep.
it's kind of nice to see. Obviously, Nietzsche's is one of the historic places there left in the neighborhood.
Yeah, they're coming back now. New
Mhm.
ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're-
Protect that at all costs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wrap it in bubble wrap. I saw a post
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
It was Nietzsche's and Good Bar. They said wrap it in bubble.
Yeah.
I was
Like,
seeing
yeah.
that. I was seeing that circulate. So, the one thing, I do have to say about the Buffalo bar and restaurant community is that everybody does seem to come together and support each other,
It's
when
tough.
they need to.
When you talk about staff, there's no bars don't have retirement plans for part-time
Right.
employees.
Yeah.
So you see that when you see older bartenders. Like, what do you do when your bartender isn't moving as fast as the younger people
Mm-hmm.
that have been loyal to you for years and years?
Yeah.
So we'll, I'm sure. I don't know if I want to ask you any of your stories from these places.
We'll edit it.
Well, but Brick Bar, did we do our original non-official carol crawl? Did that happen at Brick Bar? Brick Bar when we did
swing
that?
through Brick Bar.
We did swing through
Yep.
Brick Bar, but
Briefly sang a song. They let us in. I think they poured us a shot there when we were there. They were one of the more accommodating bars for that adventure.
I know you said you weren't a Brick Bar person, but I'm sure you have memories from there.
Yeah, I was certainly a Brick Bar person when I was 21. I think that's just certain places are made for certain ages, and I've got no issue going into a dive and getting a PBR. I just haven't found myself out enough to go there. If I'm on Allen Street, I'm going to Nietzsche's or the Pink basically,
Right.
or getting food at Bally or whatever. But if I'm going there for a PBR and a shot, I'm just going to go to the Pink because I loved the Pink.
Yeah.
The Pink was my favorite bar on the planet, and Nietzsche's I played 500 shows at Nietzsche's, and that's probably an exaggeration, but a lot of shows at Nietzsche's. So I'm gonna go there and say hi to the staff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daniela, you said you were a Nietzsche's person, and they're continuing because there was a moment there where it wasn't certain that they were going to continue,
Nietzsche's
but they have
is
some
back.
new
Good.
membership, and
Yeah. That was like it was one of my first bars I tried to get into when I was like 16 or something like that. I did have my fake ID, and that was the time you did the chalk.
Oh
yeah, oh
But
yeah.
I did. Get
You had to work
turned
for
down.
it.
Yeah, because the person was like 5'8" and I'm like 5'2". It didn't work. But I got in a lot of times when I was younger, and I hope my son is not listening because I pretend
Everything's
to be-
allegedly.
Yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly.
I think it's harder
They've
to do
cracked
those things
down.
now. Yeah, there's scanners. And
Well, they have the scanners, right, with the barcode.
Yeah.
And
So
there's a lot stricter oversight, at least in New York State and in Buffalo.
Yeah.
They're really on you. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
I used to go out all the time before I was 21 to
Yeah, everybody
places that we've talked about today regularly without ever questioning
Right.
that it would be an issue.
yeah.
It's different now.
Yeah. I mean, music memories, the Mohawks closing. It's funny that Nietzsche's, being such a dive bar, was known for music, all probably thanks to EVR.
Well,
Right.
Until COVID, Nietzsche's was the longest running music venue in the country or the world, one of them, because they never missed a night. They would have music on Christmas, snowstorms. My band had a show book there, and it was one of those horrible snowstorms, travel advisory, travel everything. We called, and it's like, hey, are we still playing the show? It's like, yeah, it's Nietzsche's. 1 a.m., you're on the stage. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, that makes perfect sense. I'll play for the sound guy and my girlfriend. you know? Yeah. But they did it, and that was the feather in their hat, and COVID changed that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like for their plan moving forward, they want to continue that, like music every night, and try to make that work.
Yeah,
So hopefully,
music every night. They're
yeah.
doing some improvements to the sound and lighting. The new ownership and management team is good. They're experienced. They're nice people. They've got
Good.
the right intentions. I have very high hopes for the future
Great.
of Nietzsche's.
So
Right.
Daniela, we could probably get you back there now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
No problem.
They accept credit cards now.
Well, they do. Yeah. I mean, it's a cashless
Oh, thank God,
society.
yeah.
So what are you gonna do? Yeah, credit cards.
Yeah, this is the first time that they've ever accepted
Yeah.
credit cards.
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
I think Holly Farms across the street was mostly in business based on the ATM
TM,
charges from Nietzsche's.
There's a bar in Elmwood. I won't mention that. It only takes cash. I was like, what? I ordered like 2 beers. I'm like, oh no. Well, it's whatever, $10, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, here's a card. We don't take cards. I'm like, oh, crap,
You're like,
what
I
do
don't know
you
how to
do?
function right
How
now.
do you do that?
You go hit the ATM and they just
Yeah.
got another $3.
Right,
from you.
exactly. Yeah. Mm.
So Tom,
Yeah.
you were here, you moved away, did this job for a little while,
Yeah.
came back. When you came back, what were some of the places that you were like, I have to go, the first places you had to go back, or when you would visit?
Yeah, good bar for sure. Certainly the Pink. And not to sound cool, whatever, edgy, whatever. I always liked going for places of danger. I just did. There was just something about walking into a place going, I'm not sure what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Just being self-aware, not being like out of your
Exactly.
mind that you're not like aware of things. And sometimes you're like, okay, I'm going to get out now because this looks like it's turning in a bad way, violence or whatever. But like, I did love that sense of danger going
Yeah.
out. I just thought it was actually kind of fun in not seeing anybody do shenanigans as much
Yeah.
as that you just didn't know where the night was going to take you.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was on Allen Street, frankly.
Yeah.
You know,
Same.
yeah. And then again, I always traveled for the music or a particular DJ or something like that or a band. But yeah, for me, the Elmwood Strip at Buff State was, Tuesday nights at Good Bar was New Wave night, 25-cent drafts. God only knows what that was. But, you were the patio was packed and you were there till, 4 a.m. till last call, Gables was another place like that. Checkers on Hurdle.
Yeah.
Rude Boys also on Hurdle, where Rick James used to hang out, and
Yeah.
and Eddie Murphy and stuff. So yeah, there was always those places. But like I said, it's just safer with Uber now. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. I had to recently stand in line somewhere because I was actually out after 10 on a Saturday night.
Where were you?
I was up the street from your place. And then I think I walked down to your place, but I was like, this is great. And I remember being told, why did you stand in line? You don't have to stand in line there. I'm like, it was fun. It reminded me of being in my 20s that I was happy to be standing in line. So moral of the story, support your local restaurants
If you like
and
a
businesses.
place, go there.
Yeah.
And it's just it's part of living in a city. You need to do that.
And
it just can't be the same. Like, I just go to this one, not even a restaurant, but this one store. You gotta spread the wealth, whatever you can do, whatever your budget allows.
Well, in downtown here too. I mean, now that people are going back to work, hopefully that will be a thing. Go out to lunch and work lunches.
I don't think the office buildings will ever be 100% of what they were, just because technology doesn't force you to come in and interact face to face anymore.
Yeah.
You can do a million different ways to do your job from anywhere on the planet you want to.
Right.
You don't need to be at your desk to answer that phone that's ringing on it. You don't need to get the mail from that box. It's just not how it is anymore.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will be turning around. I know there are
Love your
incentives for there are incentives now for people, companies requiring people to come back into the office. So maybe we'll see the effects of that. But support your local businesses. And now that I'm hungry and we talked about your soup, I will be in soon.
I should have
Daniela.
bought it.
Obsessed. That wraps up today's episode of Group Chat for now. If you want to continue the conversation, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WBFO News. I'd like to thank my guests Tom Calderone, Josh Mullin, and Daniela Kayser. I'm your host, Bentley. Have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.
Support for Group Chat is provided by our members and by the National Comedy Center.